4, 3. Okay. So,
Welcome to Democrats Discuss, a monthly television program that updates you on politics in the state of Rhode Island and specifically the Democratic Party. My name is Joe McNamara, chairman of the Rhode Island Democratic Party, and also a state representative representing the city of Warwick and Cranston in the 19th District. Today, we have a very special guest, new executive director of the Rhode Island Democratic Party, Kevin Olasanoye. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Chairman.
Kevin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the Democratic Party?
Sure. I am the oldest of 4 boys. My parents are immigrants from Nigeria. My mother spent her career as a nurse, working in first in nursing homes all over the state, and then most recently at the adult correctional facility. My father is an accountant, started working for the Urban League when he first got here in 1979, and has been doing some accounting work most recently at the University of Rhode Island. I am born and raised in Rhode Island. I love the state. Grew up in Providence. Went to classical high school, the University of Rhode Island undergrad. I always joke that I took a hiatus and worked for Jack Reed in Washington, D.C. for 2 years after college, but I never left Rhode Island because I went to Rhode Island every day in the office. And went to law school, decided to go to law school, and came back to Rhode Island because I loved it here so much. So I'm a proud graduate of Roger Williams University School of Law. And then in the 5 years since I've graduated from law school, I've been trying to figure out ways to give back. And so I started working in the law department first for the city and that I grew up in Providence. And then most recently, before I became executive director of the party, I was working with disadvantaged businesses in Providence and all over the state, trying to figure out how to connect them to opportunities to do business with the city of Providence. And so I'd like to think that my life's work has been about bringing people together and trying to solve large issues. And that's part of what brings me to the party and what excites me about doing this work.
Wow, that's a very impressive resume, Kevin, and especially bringing people together. As you know, the Democratic Party has a very large tent. And sometimes, like any large families, we have different groups and wings that argue, but hopefully at the end of the day, we come together. And I always remind people that we have more in common than separates us. So we have to remember that people have different philosophies in some areas, but what really unites us is helping people and kind of reflecting the work that you've done, holding that hand out and helping people achieve their potential. And we see that reflected in our philosophy.
Absolutely. I think our party and our country is better when we're able to have a free-flowing exchange of ideas. And what that means is that we have to be able to tolerate folks who don't necessarily share our views on any one particular issue, but I do think it's important at the end of the day that we come together. And I hope that's the lesson that we learned from the 2016 election, that if we don't figure out a way to come together and put our differences aside, we could end up having a world and a government that doesn't really reflect our values. And to me, it's more important to focus on the things that bring us together than the things that divide us. That's the type of party I think we've got to be. That's ultimately the kind of country we want to be.
I think you're 100% correct. We realize, and we have to realize, that we're stronger working together. And certainly with various issues, I know in the General Assembly, we disagree, we argue with our colleagues. It's not easy work. But compromise and seeing the overall objectives of helping people and helping people achieve their potential through traditional democratic values of supporting education, supporting health care, supporting working families. That's the type of mission I think we can all understand. You certainly came on board at an exciting time, Kevin. Nationally, we have elected a new leader, Chairman Perez of the Democratic Party. Also, Keith Ellison has come on board as deputy chair. What do you see nationally in terms of the way the party is heading? What's going on with that?
Yeah, it is a challenging time to be a Democrat, but it's also a very exciting time to be a Democrat. Aside from the disappointment that we all share from the presidential election, I think that has ignited a fire in us to get back to the roots of what the Democratic Party has always been about, which is making sure that we are a grassroots party that fights for the things that we believe in and that doesn't wait for an election cycle before we start to make sure that people know about what our values are. And so that's what we're going to be doing nationally. That's what we're going to be doing in the state of Rhode Island, is making sure that we're talking to working class folks every day about the things that they care about and figuring out ways that we can be responsive to their needs on healthcare, on education. Here in the state of Rhode Island, we've got economic development issues. We want to make sure that anybody who wants the dignity of work has the opportunity to be able to have a job on the other side. And I know the governor is working really hard to make that happen. We should be working with folks to hear from them so that we're a party that's responsive to folks. And that's nationally what the vision is. And I think that that's absolutely a vision that we've got to have here in Rhode Island. It's what I'm looking forward to being able to build.
We have Prime Minister Trudeau coming in Friday, and the National Governors Association here. We have the Treasurers Association that are coming to Rhode Island, and the Senate, United States Senate President's Organization is meeting as we speak in Newport. So certainly there is a lot of political activity in Rhode Island. I know as we speak, Chairman Perez is coming into the state to raise money for the national DNC. And in terms of local organizing this summer, Kevin, what activities, what are we doing as a party? What steps are you taking?
Sure. So we're honored to have national leadership here in Rhode Island. I think it's a great opportunity for us to spotlight all the great work that we're doing here in Rhode Island. And nothing excites me more than seeing all the grassroots activism that we have in the party, frankly. I inherited a party that is energized and excited and is looking to find meaningful ways to contribute. Perhaps that's one of the best benefits that we got out of having President Trump in the White House, is people are looking for ways to get involved, and we're going to find ways to channel that energy. So we've got a power-packed program for this summer. We're calling it Resistance Summer. And what we're doing is building an organization and an operation to be able to resist the Trump administration, and they need to be resisted. As you know, there are a lot of folks in Rhode Island who could potentially lose their ability to get health care if the Trump administration continues along the path that it's going. And so, between kids that are on Medicare, families that are out there hurting, we got to get out and talk to those folks and remind them what the Democratic Party is fighting for.
I know that as part of President Trump's, what they refer to as the skinny budget, his cuts in Medicaid, a lot of people say, well, that affects older people, it won't affect me. But speech pathologists, physical therapists in schools, psychologists and counselors, they get federal Medicaid reimbursement. So we have our local school systems are going to have to start to fund those because that's going to be cut out from the federal government. those children will be have reduced service possibilities, and it affects local taxpayers.
Sure.
I know that if the currently proposed Senate budget was to go through on the Affordable Health Care Act, that 200,000 Rhode Islanders would be without health care. That has a cost, that has an impact. So these are real situations that I believe have energized many of our citizens. I know I recently had a little cookout in my backyard for Gatsby Days, and one of my constituents, a father whose son is in a group home, said, "Joe, would you mind if I bring some of Andrew's friends?" I said, "Absolutely, they're always welcome." And that the governor and Senator Whitehouse and our congressional delegation, Congressman Langevin and Cicilline, said, "This is great, Joe." And sometimes people have to be reminded that we have a responsibility for all of our citizens. And I can see the panic in some of these parents, especially of special needs sons and daughters. They're very involved. So, and a lot of people, it'll come up to me and say, "Joe, what can I do? How can I get involved?" And I know some of our caucuses, Kevin, have become very active. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So probably the number one caucus that has gotten excited is our Women's Caucus. We have a lot of folks, women who are energized, who are looking to become more part of the process. They're looking to run for office. They're looking to be operatives on campaigns. They're looking to just find a way to plug in. And over the last 6 months, we've seen an influx of women who are excited and who are trying to be a part of the process. The same is true, frankly, of our I'm Able caucus, which is a caucus that is dedicated to advocating for the rights and responsibilities of folks who are disabled in the disabled community. So we've seen a lot of activism there. I would say, as a practical matter, we've seen a lot of young folks come out and who have wanted to get excited and get involved. And so that's what excites me about doing this job.
Yep.
Is that there's so much excitement that's out there. And, you know, my challenge, our challenge as Democrats is to figure out a way how to channel that energy in the right direction to make sure that not just for elections, but for the institutions, for the values, for the issues that we care about, that we're out there talking to folks and making sure that our message is getting out there.
Yeah. I think it's important, too, that we also represent many small businesses, and we've had discussions at the State House. We were going back and forth with our small business community, especially the hospitality industry, which is very big in our state, and that we really try to reach a balance between small businesses, helping them out. And, last year, we removed the tax on energy use for small businesses, which helped them a great deal. But also seeing young people get involved, the LGBTQ community. We had a bill relating to banning a process, really a very horrible process called conversion therapy, in which they try to change someone's gender orientation or sexual orientation through therapy, which is not supported by anyone. We had 97, mostly young people, come out to testify in support of this legislation. And towards the end of the session, we had groups of young people coming in and saying, "Is this going to prevail? Will it pass?" I said, "Absolutely." And the vote in the House was unanimous. And many of our members of the Democratic Party, who were very conservative, supported it. They said, "Joe, it's the right thing to do." And it was a very, very big victory for that contingency. And they were just thrilled. And it motivates people to get more involved. And in terms of our ability community, people with differing abilities, the deaf and hard of hearing community this year has lobbied very hard for just getting subtitles on movies.
Sure.
And a policy that they could support. And we were moving on a piece of legislation. The theater owners got together with the deaf and hard of hearing community and came up with a compromise that was acceptable by everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a win that started by a group advocating for a minimal amount of equality in an area that most of us love, the movies. And it worked as a compromise without tying their hands. But it was that grassroots advocacy and that passion that drove the whole issue. So
yeah, and so I think this is such an important point that where we're going to get back to as a party to be successful, not just in elections, but moving forward, is by doing that grassroots type of organizing. We've got to get back to, as a party, a place where we talk to our neighbors and we go from house to house, from street to street, block to block, neighborhood to neighborhood, talking to folks and trying to get them to understand that we understand what they care about and that we're going to be responsive to them when it comes time to governing. I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
I know that you're aware of this, the early voting legislation that we had up at the General Assembly. Here's an opportunity to make it easier for people to exercise the franchise and get involved in our electoral process. I think everybody agrees, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you should be able to go and vote. And the easier that we can make that, the better it's going to be. We heard from people all over Rhode Island, legislators like yourselves and your colleagues, and we were able to make that work. And I think that's really important. But that stuff doesn't happen overnight. It requires people to get energized. It requires them to get enthused, but ultimately to get organized. And that's the type of party, I think, that we want to be here in Rhode Island. And if I'm lucky enough to continue to serve in this capacity, that's the type of party we're going to be.
Yep. I mean, I enjoyed last summer campaigning. I had the privilege of knocking on 5,000 doors and talking to a couple of thousand individuals and really hearing about issues that concern them. And many of these issues are kind of surprising. Our state is aging. And for many of the seniors, and I'm a senior myself, 66 years old, staying in their homes, very critically important to them. And this past session, we worked with AARP to enable people to get a tax credit for modifications to their home that make their home more livable. Mm-hmm. And I say to people, why is this a good investment? Because if you can let people age in place in homes that can accommodate people as they age and individuals with disabilities, it builds a stock of homes that are accommodating, and it keeps individuals in their homes rather than in nursing homes.
That's right.
Paying for the most expensive part of our budget, which is Medicaid. Mm-hmm. So there is a payback for keeping individuals in their homes. So that's just one small thing that I noticed, and of course, even the speaker this year, the car taxes, very, very important, and unfortunately in the cities, especially the city of Providence and Pawtucket, our urban core, really very, very difficult issues. So, Kevin, when people want to get involved, what do you recommend? Is there, can they go to our website, or what is the process?
So anybody who wants to get involved at the party should feel free to reach out to us on our website, ridemocrats.org. They can reach out to me personally. My email address is going to be on the screen. You can call us here in the office. We'd love to hear from folks. that are looking to get involved, and we have plenty of opportunities to do that. As I mentioned, this summer, we'll be reaching out to Rhode Islanders all across the state to try to talk to them about the issues that concern them. We want to hear from them about things that they want to see the General Assembly be doing next year. We want to talk to them about issues that concern them at the national level. We want to hear from them and inform them about progress that has been made over the last year, to let them know that the party is being responsive to them and their needs, and that, ultimately we're going to be the party of the working class family. And so I encourage anybody to send me an email, give us a call, give us a shout, and as I said, our goal is to knock on 20,000 doors this summer. We're going to try to do another 20,000 doors in the fall. We're not going to wait until November of 2018. We're going to start talking to people right now, and building that conversation, building that sense of community back into the party that we've always had, that we always wish that we have. I've been traveling all over the state, and one of the things we all lament about our politics is the fact that people just don't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have that around the table dinner time conversation. And I think that that's really important for people to be able to do. One, because it brings down the rhetoric.
Yeah.
We can start to be more civil with one another, but also I think because that's how you get organized. That's how you get to understand the issues, not from a granular policy level, but at a real grassroots level. How does what's happening affect a family?
It's interesting, Kevin, neighbors talking to neighbors. In my community, I have the Patuxent Village, kind of a historic area, some older neighborhoods and newer neighborhoods. And some people have said, and I have to agree, when I walk down streets like outside of Patuxent Village with older homes, they still have front porches. And people sit on their front porches, and they talk to neighbors as they go by. They know their neighbors. I think something happened when we went from front porches to backyard decks with fenced yards that really inhibited some of the neighborhood communication that older, more established neighborhoods have. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting in visiting homes in my district last summer was the concern about quality education. And people who have, like myself, who have raised their families and their children are no longer in school, there is still that conversation about having high quality homes and maintaining a high quality public education system. And it's how important that is to a vibrant community, a vibrant economy, and a vibrant state. And I was just very proud of my constituents and their responses to educational issues. And I'm sure it's something that you've come across in talking to people, especially with your background in education.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in order for us to be able to compete in the economy of the future, we've got to make sure that our kids have the skills to be able to do that. And that means we've got to have high quality, good education. And, families all over the state are concerned about education. They're concerned about after school programs and making sure that not just that their kids get the basics, but that they have a well-rounded education that includes arts education and music and sports. We want our kids to be well-rounded. And it's unfortunate that sometimes in our politics, this stuff gets reduced to a soundbite or a talking point.
Yeah.
But the reality is, for that family of four who's trying to make decisions about whether or not they're going to stay in our state, these are the types of things that they care about. And we should be talking to those folks and getting them to understand that the Democratic Party hears them and the concerns that they have, and we're willing to work with them to address them. That's why it's so important to have energize and enthused folks in our party to begin to do that work of organizing, and that's what we'll be doing this summer. As I said, we're hoping to continue to have this conversation now and into the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went to a public course to play some golf last weekend, and I was playing golf with an individual who I just met who happened to be a constituent. His son is a junior at Pilgrim High School, and he said to me, he said, Joe, my son's a bright kid, and he's involved, he tried these activities, we're into athletics, he played football, it really wasn't quite for him, and he ended up getting involved in this play at school. And I said, oh, is it the musical No No Nadette, which is an old 1920s musical that the kids did. Kevin, this production was like something you would see on Broadway. The director, the teacher, that oversaw, the theater director, at the beginning of the play said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that I am taking a seat, and this entire production is being run by students.
That's fantastic.
And then the production was phenomenal. They had about 90 students involved, the actors, a tech crew of maybe 25 students that ran the sound, the music, the microphone, all of the lighting was done professionally. And I said, wow. I said, this is incredible, and this is what a comprehensive high school is all about. And the lives that they touch, those students who are involved in this. Now I'm playing golf with a parent, and I said, well, I sent a letter to every kid, every student that was in that, and just encouraging them and tell them to pursue their passions. And he said to me, my son loved and loves doing that production. He has worked on a Saturday for 18 hours from the morning to late into the evening to get it done. And that's the type of community that we all want for our children, and the type of enthusiasm that we like to see in education. And more importantly, it's really what the Democratic Party is about, is giving people that opportunity to find their passion, utilize their talents to make our state a better place. So with that, Kevin, I would like to thank you for spending time with us today, and also compliment you on, the job that you've done so far and your dedication to have someone with your credentials, your attorney, your great story. Of course, Senator Reid said he started with us, so we're taking credit, and that's fine. But I am sure that the Democratic Party will grow and thrive in the coming months because of your leadership. And for that, on behalf of the Democratic Party, I would like to thank you very much. And thank you to our audience. And remember, when you're involved, our community will be better. Thank you.